Board of Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, January 7th, 2014. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded. I would like to start off our meeting with just a brief moment of silence just to recognize our servicemen and women that are serving our country over in Afghanistan. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, just to add, since our last meeting, an additional Massachusetts serviceman was killed over in Afghanistan from the town of Abington. So we may also just remember he and his family and his friends from that town.
Thank you. Thank you. So we've got a number of action items here. First up on our agenda for tonight is kind of reviewing a potential list of articles for our annual town meeting that's coming up in April, of course, this year. The warrant for town meeting closes on February 4th, so about a month from now. So folks have up until that time in order to work to see if they want to place an article on the town warrant so that it can be voted on at town meeting. So Michael's been good enough to put together some preliminary articles, potential of about 36 or so of them. Some may stay on, some may not. And so I thought maybe we'd take a few moments and kind of run down a few of them. And if anyone had any questions, maybe, Michael, you can touch on them, and then we can kind of, anything we have questions on, we can kind of follow up on.
And this is just a list. Sometimes we have to chase these down to get the actual request in by the closing date. But I wanted to put together a list in case there was anything that we had forgotten. Sometimes during the course of the year, the selectmen will suggest articles that we consider for town meetings. So I threw everything in there but the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
And some of these you may want to delete, or you may want to add some that I hadn't thought of. Mm-hmm. Item 11 is the first one that is not a routine article, and it's to reduce the residency requirement for qualified veterans from 5 years to 1 year. Mm-hmm. This is for veterans who didn't live in Medfield for 6 months at the time they enlisted in the service. Okay. So if someone who moved to Medfield but had enlisted from another community anywhere in the United States, I presume, mm-hmm. The normal requirement for eligibility would be 5 years. If the town accepts this, it could be reduced to 1 year.
So they just have to be a resident of town for 1 year in order to be eligible for
yes.
benefits in town.
And that's something you may want to, when the veterans agent comes in with his budget, you may want to discuss with him. And
what impact that might have.
Yes, yeah. Item 12 is one that you put on every year. That's the one that allows the assessors to double the amount of the exemptions mm-hmm. for certain categories of veterans and widows and blind and whatnot. Item 13 and 14 are ones that the veterans agent asked we put on the mm-hmm. warrant, and this is regarding exemption from the motor vehicle excise tax for certain categories of veterans. Okay, item 19, it's going to confuse people because in the past, the senior tax work-off program and the veterans tax work-off program have been handled as abatements and charged to the overlay account that the Board of Assessors have. Because of a situation where the IRS is now making a determination that those payments have to be issued as payroll checks with withholdings. The assessors have advised us that they cannot charge them to overlay accounts. It seems like the Massachusetts law on abatements and exemptions for these work-hard programs is in conflict with the federal IRS rules and regulations. So we put an article in to actually appropriate money to pay off those abatements. Mm-hmm. And we still have to work out the details. I guess we'll have to issue payroll checks, and we actually have to withhold from those checks. So if the tax work-off program is $500, we will have to withhold a minimum of 70% to go into a qualified pension plan, which can create problems because it may make people ineligible for certain Social Security benefits if they have contributed to a qualified pension plan. So people will have to be very careful that they understand whether working under the tax work hour program will lose benefits, Social Security benefits
This is
for
so
them.
that we're in compliance with federal law?
Yes, my understanding is the IRS went into one of the abutting towns and spent 2 or
Dover.
3 days.
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Well, they want to make
And
sure they get some some
said-
taxes on it. Got to tax everything you can
Well,
possibly
and-
think of.
Out of $500
Exactly.
Well, I think it has more to do, in my opinion, it has more to do with the Social Security. They're trying to cut down on eligibility of people for Social Security. Everyone who is not under a qualified pension plan, which they determine to be Mass Teachers Retirement System or the Norfolk County Retirement System, we now, and this has been in effect for several years on anyone who's on payroll check, we have to deduct 7% of their salary to put it into the SMART Deferred Compensation Plan, which the federal government, Social Security Administration, now considers to be a qualified pension plan for those people. Anyone else who's under a qualified pension plan, Norfolk County or Teachers Retirement, who puts money into that plan, it's not considered a qualified pension plan because you're already under a qualified pension plan. But if you're not under one of those, they consider a qualified pension plan. And they are now disqualifying people from receiving certain Social Security benefits because they're saying, well, you have contributed to a qualified pension plan, so you're not eligible for Social Security.
It's minuscule.
Yes. We even have to deduct this for swim instructors and lifeguards and
In a summer part-time
yeah,
position.
library aides,
And
Us?
poll workers,
poll workers.
Poll
Yeah.
workers.
I get what?
Meanwhile, there
$100?
are billions of dollars in fat cat taxes going uncollected, and they're chasing down people with $500 tax deductions. This is ridiculous, but.
It
Is
is.
this going to be harder than for the staff here at Town Hall as far as, they're going to have to start?
Yeah, we'll have to send out a lot more, and we have 65 people on the tax work hour program. You got to send out 65 W-2s.
W-2s, right,
You have
yeah.
to collect, set up deferred compensation accounts for all of those people for their 7% of their $500 or whatever. So yeah, it does. And it's going to create problems for them. They're going to have to check with their accountants to see if it's going to jeopardize their Social Security benefits or whatever. So, but this is your IRS hard at work.
So there's really no, option with this. This is to be in compliance with federal law. There's really no option.
I think so. I think the state needs to address it on a statewide basis because this is going to affect every city and town. And I don't know if, you get no guidance on these things. You've got the state saying handling it one way, the IRS handling it another way, and we're kind of caught in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And every town is trying to figure out what to do. And there ought to be somebody from the state ought to sit down with somebody from the IRS and say, okay, this is how we handle this, so that every city and town will handle it the same way.
Consistently, yeah.
So maybe now that the election will be over and we'll have 2 state reps again, I think we ought to get our reps
Should be
in
an idea for
and
them to
and,
bring
uh,
up. to the
bring up
appropriate
as an
committee.
issue
Yes,
that
I think so. That
needs
should
to be
something.
addressed. So.
Yeah, that's a very good idea.
On that number 19, on the tax work-off, one of the issues that I've been asking about is, I think that the maximum that they can earn on that is $500, and I've been suggesting that for the seniors especially, that I think it would make sense to, it's available to have it be up to $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
But if you remember, the assessors didn't want to have it be 1,000 because it had to do with the size of their overlay account, but apparently it's not going to be on the overlay account anymore. So I guess I would suggest that as a town, we should decide whether or not people should be able to get up to 1,000 or just get stuck at 500 where
Well,
they
might
are
be
now.
something-
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the rest of us that pay for it.
Right.
The ones that we're paying full tax are paying for the, but I think it's a good investment to let the seniors earn up to 1,000.
Yeah.
Can we have that discussion as part of this article?
Sure. I think at the time there were 2 issues. One, originally there were 40 people under the tax work hour program, and the Council on Aging wanted to increase the numbers,
Yeah.
and therefore they said, well, let's keep the amount the same and allow more people to participate.
Yeah.
The other issue, as I recall, was there was a big debate when the guidelines were set up for this program over whether there should be income limitations on participation.
Yeah.
And the feeling was that if you went up to $1,000, maybe that the regulations ought to be revised and some sort of an income limitation put on
Yeah.
participation in the program.
Yeah,
So I think those two issues need to be discussed.
That was my question, because if it's a lottery, it's a lottery now, correct?
Yeah,
Basically, they
yeah.
draw, so you could be any income. You could be an
Oh,
extremely wealthy
absolutely.
individual if you wanted to. and
Sure,
you were
sure.
retired and you were looking for something just to kind of fill your time, something
Sure.
to do.
Yeah.
You could be getting that versus someone that, needs $500 or $1,000 because, they're making a choice between eating and paying their fuel bill. That's the individual I want to help.
Yeah.
I think there should be, I don't know how you would do that, but
Well, I think a lot of that was addressed by increasing the numbers participating in the program, going up 65. I think this year they were able to serve all but 5 people that applied to participate. I think they probably had 70 applicants, and they were able to
Do about 65.
come 65 or something.
70.
So, but I think part of the concern was that they viewed this program as both of a benefit to the town and to the seniors, and that many of the seniors who might have high incomes also had a lot to contribute to the town,
Exactly,
and that
yeah.
the town would benefit from their services.
Yep.
And there was also some concern that they didn't want this program viewed as a social welfare type program because they felt a lot of people wouldn't want to participate if they thought it was a income charity, social welfare type thing. So there was a lot of debate back and forth, and I think it's something you need to talk to the Council on Aging
Okay.
and get their opinion as to how they view handling it before we, because they've had several years of exposure to
Yeah,
how the
really
program
has.
works, and yeah.
That's a very good idea.
The other issue that I would like to talk about is whether people are doing real work. I don't want people just getting paid.
Right, yeah.
I think they really
Yeah.
should be doing.
And there was some, and it has been a problem at times coming up with jobs. I know for one time the schools had a lot of people working in the schools, but since the security issues in the schools with the shootings, the schools don't have them working in the schools anymore.
That's too bad.
They may have some, but they've done away with a lot of the jobs in the schools.
Hmm.
So,
can we, I think that's an excellent idea. Can we then, at some point shortly, have the Council of Aging come in so we can have this discussion with them? Can we schedule them
sure,
either outside
Yeah.
a meeting or during a meeting?
yeah.
Because there are a lot of questions with that, and you just raised some interesting points I actually hadn't thought of, so.
Yeah, it'd be great to hear their recommendations. Maybe they can give us some thought on that, and we can maybe,
Yeah,
once again,
yeah.
give their reason.
Because I know at the time they had a lot of internal debate among themselves as to how to handle it, and with I think the assessors probably be good to invite the assessors to that one
Yeah.
too. Because even though though it may not be handled as a abatement or exemption anymore, or charged overlay, they
sure, it's
would have some thoughts on it.
Oh, I
so.
think that's very important, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Why don't we try to schedule again? You try to get them to come in.
And the first meeting in February.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Good. We were on 19, so 20, this is the one that you suggested that based on the Needham bylaw that we put on
Whether we
the
want to
agenda to
look at
regulate the consumption.
public consumption
I
of
put
marijuana.
in use, and town council advised me it had to be consumption, not
Consumption.
use,
Okay,
whatever.
okay.
Hmm.
So, but I have copies of that bylaw that Pete gave me from Needham, and we can take a look at that and see if we want to put that on.
Mhm. Who would be the sponsor of that? Would it be us, or would it be the Board of Health? Would the Board of Health be the one for that?
I don't know, it
Or
was
the police chief?
Pete that suggested it, so I assume it would come from the board,
Be the head.
would be the one, unless the Board of Health wants to sponsor it, I don't
Okay.
know, yeah. Have you talked to the Board of Health at all about this, do you know?
No?
Okay.
We haven't seen them yet. Are they scheduled to come in?
I don't have a date right now, but we're having
Yeah.
the.
We'll see them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
We're
see
gonna have
all.
them come in, because they do the outreach budget, they do
Yeah.
the Board of
See
Health,
all
they
their
do the,
budgets,
yeah, so. Okay, so that's 20. 21 is routine. 22 is sort of routine,
Yeah. Yeah.
except if you look at 23, 22 and 23 kind of tie together. 22, the warrant committee, particularly Gus Murby, is very committed to maintaining the level of contributions to the OPEB
Sure.
funding level, and I think, Pete, you've expressed concern about that, too. We put $500,000 in this year. Our unfunded liability is $41 million. But
Our annual cost is probably $1.5 million like it was last year.
yeah, I think in the audit report that you'll get pretty soon, it was $2 million a year
Oh.
is the difference
Only-
between what we're appropriating on a pay-as-you-go basis and what our liability is. So
There was an interesting op-ed piece in the Globe this week by some Harvard Business School person on the OPED, and he was talking about the city of Boston, because theirs is $40 billion apparently, and he was laying out the 4 or 5 things that they really should be doing, and I think that
Yeah.
should be. I'll try to find
I
that.
saw that, I
Oh,
read
did you?
that, it was very interesting. It said Boston had lowered theirs, but it was still at a tremendous amount.
Yeah, I think it was $40 billion.
yeah.
I think ours is only $40 million.
You know, seems the whole system goes merrily along. They had appointed a special commission to look at the whole pension issue, and they came out with their report, and everybody ran for cover, you know, and said, oh, we don't want to do anything yet, so.
Thank you very much.
Yes, yes, let's pass it on to the next generation, so, I don't know what.
That'll be good, yeah, because you talked about, in setting up this, transferring into a special trust fund, right? And then it helps with the
Yes.
actuarial.
It does help with the actuarial. Right now, because it's not in a trust fund,
Yeah.
and there are a couple of methods of putting it in trust fund. You have to, one is you set up a trust fund document. You vote to establish a trust fund document. You appoint a board of trustees, and they have fiduciary responsibilities, and et cetera, et cetera. And then there's another way you can do it where you just turn it over to the state pension investment reserve trust or something, and they invest it for you. So there are choices on how you do it. And but what happens is, until it's in some sort of a trust agreement, the
Discount rate.
auditors will not consider it as a reduction in the liability, because they're saying the town meeting by a 2/3 vote can
Grab
vote
it
the money
anytime.
out of
You take the
we have it
money
in a
anytime.
stabilization fund right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
And they're saying in a trust, they can't take it out.
right.
It's voted in for that specific purpose and
That's it.
nothing else.
Well, that's
So
a good
once
idea.
you put it in there, they make interest rate assumptions about the rate of return on the investments in that fund, and it lowers your potential liability. So,
I think that's a good. that's a
On
good
the
idea.
OPED, Mike, aren't we waiting to get a actuarial report as well on that, to look at what we're going to be doing?
yes, we have the. I'll check with Joy to find out if she's got the final copy on it. I know we had asked the company that did the investments, did the actuarial study to come in and meet with the board to present their findings, and they wanted $385 an hour to come in and talk to you. So we didn't consider that was a
No.
wise investment.
Right.
They thought they should do it as part of their service, but they wouldn't. But yeah, and I thought what I'm going to try to do is get the accountant to come in, also the insurance advisory committee,
Yeah.
because we expect to have, at the MMA meeting you guys are going to the end of the month, they won't announce the individual rates for each city and town, but they will announce a range of rates, the minimum, the maximum increase you would experience next year. We've had very good luck the last 2 years. Over the 2 years, it only went up 1.72%.
Which insurance are you talking about?
Health insurance,
Health insurance.
yes. I think this year we're going to see a bigger rate increase because our experience claims experience has gone up a bit. It's about 95%. Part of the reason it's gone up a bit is our rates didn't go up. So if you have the same medical inflation costs at 5%, your rates have only gone up 1.72. Your claims experience will go up. So, but we need to kick that around a bit. The other thing too is there are some communities that are going into the GIC as a way to saving money. And there's been some articles in the paper about that. I think people would say, well, why doesn't Medfield join the GIC? And I think we need to get the Insurance Advisory Committee, particularly Peter Moran, come in. He has a lot of common sense experience in how this works and what the advantages and disadvantages of the GIC.
Well, I read the same article. It made it seem as if some of these communities that are getting in are saving tremendous sums of money.
Don't always believe what you read.
We went through this whole exercise a few years ago where it seemed like it was like the
Yes.
best thing ever.
My understanding is some of them are now trying to get out because their rates are now going up so much more in the GIC than they would if they were out of it. And generally, the communities that are going in have very bad claims experience. And that's why they're going in, because their rates are jumping up so high because of their claims experience. So when they get in, the question is, do you want to go in with communities like that have very bad claims experiences, and they're going to push your rates up?
Because you're going to help subsidize
So
that.
it's not an easy question to answer. It's kind of tricky.
Is it also the more communities that go in than?
Well, theoretically, the bigger the pool, the better the risk, but, it depends on the pool you're in,
Yeah.
If you're in the Atlantic Ocean in a hurricane, it may not be a good pool to be in.
But
If
we
you're,
must
We're such a little guy, too. That's the trouble. We would just get kind of dragged along with that. You know what I mean?
yes,
But we're in with Maya, and that's a pretty
Right.
big pool, probably.
it is, yeah. It's probably a better pool to be in. It's probably communities that are probably don't have the claims experience that some of the.
Some fairly success over the past couple of years.
It's been terrific.
Yes, yeah. Well, as I said, the last.
As compared to where we were before.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Although there were some sacrifices to do that, they increased the copays and deductibles a little bit and limited your choice. But generally, it's worked out well, I'd say. Yeah,
But it'll be good if Peter and them come in at some point. Yeah, just give
Yeah,
us an update.
yeah. But
They
that's
can
going to
really
be
explain
a
it.
very tricky question for this year to decide
Mhm.
which form of trust arrangement
You do on that, yeah.
prefer to go into, or.
Yep.
We had at one point talked about having the former selectmen look at the OPED issue. OPED?
OPEB, yeah, I get OPEC and OPEB mixed up. so.
And I don't know whether that's something that we want to consider again, or whether it's something that we want to try to do. Because even if we're putting in 500,000, if the annual true cost is 2 million, we're still going downhill in terms of our future liabilities and increasing our debt.
Well, I think it's something we can consider maybe in line with the warrant committee, because that's certainly they're
Yes,
very
yeah.
concerned about that themselves, too.
I'm not sure we could put the full $2 million in a year. I think that would be too much of a whack on the town's financial ability to finance current services. But I think 500,000 is getting us into the ballpark of where we should be looking at it. And
Else you want to start, and you want to kind of just establish it and kind of
yes,
start to head the right
because the state's
direction.
got to do something about this. It's going to be, it's going to be bankruptcy for a lot of cities if they don't address it. They have to address it. And so I think we have to be careful that we don't fully fund our system, because then they'll make us pay to fund someone else's liabilities as well. So you want to be proactive, but you don't want to be too proactive.
I mean, I think the Mass Taxpayers Foundation has written about this and the solutions, and we should take a look at the different solutions that have been proposed. I don't think any of them are magic bullets, unfortunately.
There was a report coming out today that talked about how if the state doesn't address these OPEB and unfunded pension liabilities, it will require reduction in municipal services. That's part of their whole, and that report was just issued today. John Nunnery sent me a summary of it.
Yes,
So I think probably that's something that bears looking at too.
I think that was the Mass Taxpayers Foundation that had done
Yes,
that.
it was. Yeah, that was their latest study. So.
Sort of on Pete's comment, do you think the former selectmen, there's an interest there? It's not the most glamorous of topics, but do you think there's an interest among the former?
I don't know.
Or maybe you could expand that, and also maybe some former people on the warrant committee too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or there's probably a lot of people with financial background, I'm sure there are in town, that might be willing to serve on a specific task like that where it can be,
One shot.
This is a very
ad hoc
highly
committee.
technical type thing. You really
Yeah.
want to have, it isn't something you just kind of wing and someone,
Right,
you know.
right.
Right, yeah.
People, you really want to have people that are very comfortable in
Yeah.
this arena.
I had suggested that we should maybe try to come up with tasks that the former selectmen could do for the town,
Mhm.
because there is a lot that you learn as a result of being a selectman, and that and if we could get the benefit of their expertise, that there might be some benefit. And Mike had suggested the OPEB issue as something that they could maybe look at the time.
Mhm.
But, maybe that's not the right issue.
Yeah, I think we did some initial exploratory work with them, and that did not seem to be the type of thing that they were interested in. They seemed to be interested in more local things, more historic or, budgetary, local budgetary, or,
Yeah.
like that, so. 24 and 25 are articles that Conservation Commission, I don't know how many articles do you have on your list? Do you have the latest? I'm up to 40,
I've got 36.
36? Okay, well,
Oh, sorry.
do you have,
Don't let me-
is there another one that,
It's all right.
New
There-
one in the folder?
Well, let's just take a peek. actually.
that may be the
Oh,
one?
here we
I
go.
got, yep, okay.
You
Okay, we had some added today. This is a work in progress, as I say.
Oh, I see.
So 24 and 25.
Oh, you snuck some in there. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Conservation submitted
Throw that away.
today, and they've done this before, Evelyn. They put them in.
Did they?
They
This is the old one?
wanted to get authority to
Yeah.
lease part of the Homequest land for agricultural or conservation-related uses, and they said they submitted 2 articles before.
Disorder.
Yep. Oh,
Um,
okay.
One of the way it words it would be for agriculture or other conservation-related uses, and the second one says for agricultural use, namely organic farming or organic cooperative farming. So I guess there's 2 different approaches they want to take a
Oh,
look
I see
at.
what you mean, either
Whether they
regular
can be
agriculture-
consolidated into one article.
Yeah.
It seemed to me town council at the time said that only the board of selectmen can lease property or something, so it may be one of those where there's some confusion over who actually enters into the lease, which
Okay.
shouldn't be a big problem, but,
Because-
It's a good
because
idea.
Right now in the Homequest land, they cannot do that, correct? They cannot use it. This
well,
would allow a
you-
possible agricultural use there.
I think you need town meeting permission to lease land. so-
Right, so as of right now, you cannot do that on the Homequest land.
Right. They
Right.
did get permission to lease some to the 4-H club, I think, for the sheep program down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have the community garden program, which is not really a lease, so,
Okay.
but yeah, other than that.
Well, that's good, so we just
cannot.
have to work on see who's the
Yeah, and you-
appropriate people. that-
Yeah, when they come in, you probably want to get their ideas of what they're talking about in
Talking
terms of
about.
it.
I
yeah.
just think that's a great idea, and I know one of the issues with the hospital as well, not necessarily the core, but even some of the surrounding land, which is zoned agricultural. What a great opportunity that would be, making use of that land.
Yeah, and they're also looking at the community-supported agriculture as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
It would be nice
I
to
think-
get
I
that
just think that would be
growing
great.
stuff again, yeah.
Article 25 is for the public safety building.
Yep.
We've scheduled the permanent building committee to come in and meet with you people on the 28th.
Yep.
They want to make a presentation as to where they stand in terms of that.
Okay.
Article 26 is to, Selectman DeSorga's request to put in to appropriate funds for reconstruction of a sidewalk at Main and South Street. That's on the agenda tonight for discussion, so
Yeah.
whether that will be necessary or not, I don't know. It depends on what you've been able to come up with. Article 27 is for the Water and Sewer Board to appropriate funds for construction of the water tower and water mains. That'll be a bond issue paid out of the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund.
Yep.
Article 28, you'll recall there was $150,000 appropriated at the special town meeting in October,
Mm-hmm.
and about $10,800 was from unexpended funds, and the rest was borrowed from the stabilization fund with the understanding that it would be
Back.
paid back at the annual town meeting. This is the article to pay that
Mhm.
back. Article 29, there was some discussion the Water and Sewer Board has been having. You'll need to talk to them about this. There's been ongoing programs to find leaks and repair them and to upgrade the system. And they thought rather than putting it in the capital budget or putting it in the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund budgets, it perhaps should be addressed as a separate article. So
Okay.
they wanted to put an article in along those lines.
I know Will did such a tremendous job on that software he had.
Right.
Was this part of that, or is this?
Yes.
It was.
Yeah, that's part of their suggestion so that they can adequately reflect what the rate
Right.
should be, water and sewer rates. Okay, Article 30. The Economic Development Committee has been meeting. I don't know if they're going to be ready to make any recommendations on that Parcel 3 on Ice House Road yet, but Park and Rec also submitted an article yesterday.
Okay, yeah.
Basically the same article they had on the warrant last year to transfer care, custody, and control to the Park and Recreation Commission for Lot 3. So those two are kind of linked together,
Yep.
and I think we'll need to talk to the Economic Development Committee to get a sense of where they are on that.
Yep.
Article,
This is very similar to what we just voted on at the last town meeting.
we dismissed both, yeah,
Yep.
and turned it over to the Economic Development Committee to take a look at, so.
Wouldn't it make sense to do a master plan so that here we have a piece of town land that we would have sort of a decision as to what our goals are as a town for different items, and so that then we could then know how that, right, instead of doing it piecemeal this way and bringing up one piece of
Yeah, although most of the
land and having two different presentations like we
Yes.
did the last time.
Well, I think that was the idea of having the Economic Development
I think
Committee
they'll
take a
give us
look
some
at it.
advice on
Most of the land we've acquired is for
Specific.
conservation purposes, and you really can't
Doing-
use it for any other purpose.
Yeah, but I think it's
There's only
still,
there's a few that we have acquired like that. The Hinckley land was another piece.
Yeah.
There was another piece we acquired, I believe, that was for municipal use. I can't think of it offhand.
A
And
piece
that-
of the Cronin property was for recreational, right?
A 1 acre parcel, yeah.
Yeah.
But, and then
more
that,
than
that
an
be-
acre, because it was a soccer field
yes,
size.
that became an issue on the land down at the corner of Plain and High Street. There was a disagreement over whether it should be acquired for municipal use or conservation use, and the town ended up not buying it as a result of
We had
that.
issue
So,
with that, yep,
but yeah, it probably, probably the first thing we need to do is talk to Economic Development
Right.
Commission and see where
Well,
they.
I guess I would feel better if the town had a master plan in terms of an overall concept. I've talked to Sarah Raposa about it, and she tells me that we can do that for but we need about $100,000. She was going to ask for the $100,000 in pieces over a number of years. It seems to me that it might be one of those things that we should just bite the bullet and do.
And what would that include, Pete?
I don't know, but I guess I'd defer to the planners. I wish Chris was here and that she could explain it, but I think that when I see an issue about leasing off or transferring control of town land like this, a parcel, I wish that it was in the context of a more complete, well-thought-out plan, a unified plan, rather than just an ad hoc,
yeah.
what do we do with this piece this time, this week?
Yeah, well, I
Um,
guess we probably want to get some more feedback, maybe from Christine and Sarah too, about if we were going to spend money in a master plan, we have to make sure there's something, is there a bunch of land that we need to actually plan for? But once again, if we've only got a couple of parcels, do we need to spend $100,000 to have a planner tell us, well, you've got lot 3 you got to do something with, and you got the Hinckley property over here, and you've got a little piece over here, and then, why we spend $100,000 to look at 3 little pieces of land that you just figure, it's one thing if you've got half the town isn't developed, and you're trying to figure out what to do
The
with it.
elephant in the room is the state hospital.
Right, but that's its own,
You know,
yeah,
and-
yeah,
and
but,
that's going to impact.
right, yeah,
Right,
but that's
yeah.
its own, yeah.
One of the things that keeps coming into my mind is the need for affordable housing and the fact that we would like to try to insulate ourselves from the 40Bs that we get, that we're getting down on West Street. And one of the ideas that I've had is that land on Ice House Road could be affordable housing. The senior center is there, and so that it's a possible site. As part of the development of the hospital, you could come up with a concept of a developer building affordable housing, some at the hospital site, some at the Hinckley Field site, maybe some at the Lot 3 on Ice House Road, some next to the Tilden Village, and I think it's better if we spread the affordable housing around throughout the town as much as we can. But there again, that's one of those things that I think that you'd figure out through a master plan. Whether I mean, one of the things that we asked to have done as a result of the 40B coming in on West Street was an affordable housing production plan. There was a draft of that was done by the Affordable Housing Committee, and they just. And I saw the draft. It was a very interesting document, but it seems to have been mired. It hasn't been moving forward very quickly recently, so that we don't seem to have much of a plan at the moment. But that I think, would somehow tie in with the master plan. I know that when we talked with the, I don't know all the things that would go into a master plan, so I'm a little bit a C talking about it. But when we were talking with the, at one point when I was talking with the building committee, and they were talking about master planning for that Dale Street area, and I mean, that's another area. It just makes sense, I think, to have a better long-term plan so that you're not dealing with things ad hoc.
Well, I guess then you have to determine how encompassing the master plan is going to be, because, and I'm not quite sure, because you can go on and on. I could see it being a $1 million master plan, by the time we get done incorporating all the.
And it can, and we are doing, I mean, for term one of the aspects would be public facilities.
Yeah.
What are our plans in terms of infrastructure, public buildings, park and rec, schools, public safety, whatnot. That's a part of it. The other part is your financial, your OPEB and pension liabilities. What are our revenue sources going to be? Are they going to be adequate to meet our expenditure needs going forward? The whole financial master plan. You have what water and sewer has been doing in terms of their bailiwick, in terms of how do they maintain 75 miles of water main and 40 miles of sewer mains, that sort of thing. The whole public works area of roads and catch basins and fire hydrants and that part. So it can get quite detailed. I think if you take a look at the 1963-64 master plan, it'll give you somewhat of an idea. But as you said, Mark, it can go all over the place. You have to decide.
And I think the concept's good. I just don't know if I don't know. I mean, the easy thing we always do is, we'll have a consultant do another plan for us. So, you have consultants do things, and I just get worried that we end up spending we waste a lot of money, and we pay consultants for stuff, and then, that's great. It just sits over there, and that's great. And then it's done. We feel better. We got a plan, but whatever. It doesn't do anything.
The philosophy, I think I agree with you, Pete. I don't think you could do that until, I think the state hospital decision has to come first. Because what happens up there would totally change a master plan, whether if housing went up there, or it was open space, or
college, or a commercial
development. It's going to skew that whole master plan.
Of course.
Until we finally decide what's going to happen up at the state hospital. Once that decision is made, then it just makes sense to have a long-range plan of what you're going to do. But I just don't think we can quite do that until the town determines what's going to happen up at the state hospital. I think that's driving any kind of a master plan a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think given the timing of it, we're going to have to make the decision about buying the state hospital before we make the decision about how we're going to use it.
Right.
And I don't think it would hurt to start that master planning process. And it could certainly go on a dual track with that and the planning for the state hospital specifically. because I think that we should have that planning for the state hospital in the forefront, because I don't think we want to just buy it and not really be actively thinking about what we're going to do with it.
No, I don't think.
Well, and it's a combination of things, too. I think if you just take a look at the downtown, it's a combination of what do you want your downtown to be, and how do you seize the opportunities that come along. You know, you don't always have the opportunities don't always follow the master plan.
Right.
Somebody comes in and decides they want to put up some sort of a development in the center.
Right.
It might make sense, even if it isn't part of the master plan.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to be flexible in how you carry out develop a master plan and how you carry it out.
I think some of that will concern zoning as well. What type
would
of
think.
zoning in the downtown
Yeah.
area?
Yes.
All that stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess it'd be great at some point, maybe Sarah could, give us a little bit of her thoughts on,
Yeah, yeah.
love to hear
Yeah.
how we tackle something
Yeah,
like that.
maybe when she comes in for her budget, we could ask her ahead of time to be ready to talk
Yeah,
about that?
and if we can get some of the planning board members here to
Very high
kick
level,
it out,
just maybe just
yeah,
for
just try to
just to
kick
kind
it
of-
around,
just to
one of
put
the
together thinking.
sessions. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Pissarro.
Just a quick comment.
I just wanted to point out that the timing for the decision on the purchase of the hospital will probably have to be made within the next 2 to 3 months. So we're not talking a long time. You know, if you wind up having to delay your start of the master plan, you won't be delaying it for very long, because you'll know, one way or another very shortly.
Timing of that is driven backwards by the legislative session apparently ending in July, and the need for special legislation, and so that we need to get the
Get this going.
town meeting vote on it as soon as possible, so that we can then get the legislation going through the legislature as soon as possible.
Administration involved in this as well.
Before they start leaving, yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Yep.
because if we don't do it this year,
It's-
and then Governor Patrick leaves, and perhaps the top level at DCAM leaves, then we may not have the opportunity to continue to buy it.
Yep.
It may be over.
I agree.
So Article 32 would be the next one.
Yep.
That's the Cultural Council.
Yep.
You had voted to put this
Yeah.
in the selectmen's budget,
Yeah.
but when we talked about it, we said that would put you way over the 2.5% budget
Yeah.
guidelines. So I don't know. And sometimes when you do these things the first year, you put them in as a separate article to see if the town meeting really wants to go along with it, and then incorporate them if they
Into the budget.
do. If there doesn't seem to be any issue with it, then the following year, put it in your budget.
Okay.
There's two. There's another one, the
Yeah.
veterans agent wants to put money in your budget or his budget to fund
Yeah.
the Veterans Day breakfast, which currently is being funded by private sources.
Sure.
The
So,
cultural council was like $4,000 or something?
It was.
42.50, I think it was something.
And then the
Yeah,
breakfast was like,
$300.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's something. I don't consider that a big amount of money. I think it's just an issue of is it nice to have it funded by the Legion and the Lions Club,
Yeah.
or should the whole town participate, or maybe a combination.
Okay.
I think you suggested we might just add it to the Memorial Day budget and call it the Memorial Veterans Day budget. It's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, article for updating the bylaws. This is the
Yeah.
bylaw review committee.
Yep.
Town council has talked to the moderator, and they agree that one of the things, I guess every year he has the town meeting vote to remove the limitation on the number of speakers at
Oh,
town
okay.
meeting. Apparently you can only have, under the bylaws, you only have a couple of speakers per item. And that doesn't give people the opportunity to get up and speak at town meetings, so they think they probably ought to change the bylaws instead of voting every year at the beginning of town meeting. So they're going to prepare an article on that.
are they coming in with other lists?
I don't
of
think
other
so.
bylaws that?
I think they're still working on them. My understanding there's a group of about 6 of them that had been meeting pretty regularly in the fall, trying to come up with
Yeah.
a program to revise the current bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's
That's-
probably, we
that's,
need to get them to come in.
They were working through when I saw them last, they were working through the material they got from General Code, I think it's called, who was doing the codification, and they were trying to get that back to them so that, and there was a time period on that, I think, in which then General Code would redo them.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to change the language, but they were working on the existing bylaws, and it was going very slowly the night that I was there. I mean, we had originally constituted that group with an idea about having them think about the bylaws for the developments in town, especially the hospital and the West Street 40B, and that's just been pushed off the table. No one's doing that part of it anymore.
What happened? I thought we were gonna do some in-house things, and Mark was gonna play a role as far as the bylaws that may impact the,
Yeah, that's right, there was a discussion about that, yeah.
where are we with
I
that?
think the committee decided that they wanted to get the existing bylaws squared away first.
Right, but then Christine had recommended that we could do something in-house, and that Mark might take a lead
We'll
with
take a
that,
look at it, yeah.
Specifically the hospital-related.
Bylaws, yeah. Why don't I have him come in the next meeting? I'd give you an update on that,
Yeah.
see where he stands on it. So Evelyn, if you can let him know that we'd like to have him come in. The next two articles have to do with the Energy Committee.
Yep.
One of them, Article 35 and 36 have to do with the green communities
Yep.
compliance.
Yep.
And I did talk to, the committee's meeting next week, but I did talk to Fred Bunger. He's been in touch with the regional rep for the Energy Department
Yeah.
about what we have to do. And Sarah and he and I are meeting, and town council are meeting next Tuesday to try to draft a bylaw revision to incorporate the zoning district for the solar generation facilities. There was a question last year that came up, I thought, that we only wanted to adopt it for R&D, not for manufacturing or generation, and the state told us you had to adopt it for everything. He's checked with them, and they said you can adopt it just for solar generating facility, and it
Okay.
will meet the criteria, the requirements of the Green Communities
Act or law.
Act, yeah. Fred also thinks that they might want to, the committee want to put an article in, which I don't have listed here, to actually fund the construction of a solar photovoltaic facility, or at least authorize the committee to proceed with some maybe private funding or whatever.
That'd be great.
So the committee, I assume, will be discussing that next
That'd be
week. to see
What's
what
the
to
area
do.
by the wastewater treatment plant that we're looking at?
Well, that area is very small. They've been looking at that, it's just a 3-acre site. Some of the people that they've talked to said that you really need a 20-acre site to make it economically feasible. One of the things that I also learned from going to the MMA meetings was that the actual solar site does not need to be in Medfield. Because one of the issues that Mike raised was the fact that we don't have many 20-acre sites in town, so that we don't have the ability to put these in Medfield. But apparently it just needs to be in our ISO district, which is some sort of large area that is our electrical grid, basically. And so as long as it's in our ISO district, we can then put out, and I was going to actually add this as another warrant article myself. I don't know whether it needs to be a warrant article, but what I'd like to see us do, I saw in the article in the Globe about the nuns in Franklin and Rentham, 500 acres. They're looking to generate money, so they're putting in a solar farm, 40-acre solar farm, and they hired a company that's going to do it, and the electricity is all going to be sold to the town of Franklin. Town of Medfield could have a solar farm on those 500 acres and benefit the nuns. The town administrator from Dartmouth, when he came, explained to us, the Energy Committee, that the town is important in the process because of the finance, the people that finance this over 20 years want a very stable entity, such as a town, that is going to be there to
Right.
contract with. And so that the town could, and all the town has to do is put out an RFP saying that we want to buy solar-generated electricity, a third part, and we could maybe try to work out a deal with the nuns, to have our person then go to the nuns and locate it on their land, and that we would then agree to buy all the electricity, and you make your money because well, we could use it to offset our electric bills. But if like the town of Dartmouth, I think they were making $7 million, and so they were more than offsetting their electric bills. They were selling it and making money on it. So I think that I don't know whether what needs to be done as a town meeting warrant article, but I think that we should have a town meeting warrant article that authorizes the town to go forward on that sort of a basis.
Okay, well, probably we need to decide at next week's Energy Committee meeting exactly what we need to put in, and maybe we'd have town council there for that too, because a lot of this is legal. I know when Dartmouth, the guy, town administrator from Dartmouth was there, he recommended that there are a few legal firms that specialize in this, and that if you're going to go forward, the big issues are getting the legal documents in order.
Yeah. He gave us the name of the person that he uses at Widmer Hale or something. It's the current version of Hale and Dorr. And that attorney is now the chair of the Mass Bar Association's Green Energy Committee, whatever it is, Alternative Energy. Yeah. He was running a program the other day I saw. But yeah, I think we should look to get something on here about that. Because I think that, as I understood from the town administrator from Dartmouth, it was fairly straightforward. All the town has to do is put out the RFP, basically.
Well,
and agree to contract for the 20 years of taking the power.
I think they were exploring it. I know that they had several sites in industrial areas, and then when they put the zoning in place, my understanding is they allowed it for the entire town, and they started, yes. Yeah. And when private property owners started to suggest putting these facilities in residential areas, there was a great deal of controversy over it. You know, it's one thing to put it in industrial areas, another to put it in a residential area.
I mean, they're not very handsome. They're just, and that was one of the things that the town administrator indicated, was that you need 20 acres because you need to screen around them to hide them, basically.
Yes, yeah.
So that...
and I understand the issue over in Franklin has been, in order to get the electricity from the solar farm to the grid or wherever they feed it in, they have to put a lot of poles in, and they're putting them through areas that the people didn't anticipate they were going to get a lot of poles put in there.
So there's the good news. They've already put the poles in, and we can piggyback on their poles.
Because they're already mad now.
Well, Franklin might have something to say about that. So.
What would the wording of your article be?
I don't know.
I think the Energy Committee's probably getting it.
I mean, I would defer to Mike in terms of what authority the town would need to do it, but I just think that we shouldn't lose another year.
I agree.
The Article 36, so that will probably be another article if we put something in along those lines. Article 36, I'm not sure whether it's going to be withdrawn or not based on my discussions with Fred. The problem is, right now, the stretch code is one of the requirements to qualify as a green community. Right now, we are under the stretch code. The Massachusetts stretch code and the national building codes are one and the same.
Right.
But the stretch code, by definition, always wants to stretch beyond the existing code level. Yeah. So they are in the process of coming up with an expanded version of the stretch code, but they don't have it in place yet. So to go to town meeting and ask them to adopt a stretch code that no one knows what's in it yet.
Right.
And when Fred Bunger checked with the state, he was told that they would not have that information available by town meeting time. Yeah. So you would be adopting a stretch code that basically you didn't know what was in it.
We're adopting, right. So,
well, you know what it is today, because it's the Massachusetts Building Code today is the stretch code.
Is the stretch code, so
that it might get stretched further.
Well, they're always stretching it, so they want you to keep stretching.
Yes, And we did ask, initially when we explored this with the state, we said, can we adopt the stretch code as is without future amendments?
Yeah.
And they said, yes, you can. And then they came back and said, no, you can't. Once you adopt it, you're subject to all future.
Oh, all future
Amendments.
amendments to the stretch code. I
So
see
you're
what you
in,
mean. You're in, you're in.
And the only way you could do it would be to
Vote your way out.
vote your way out if they would allow you, and I'm not sure whether they'd allow you to vote your way out.
Is that the reason,
That's true.
is the planning board have hesitation on that?
Well,
They
that's
just
right,
don't
yeah.
want to sponsor?
Yeah,
Well, they don't know what it is.
yes.
That's what- yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to sponsor something they don't know what it is. And they were elected on this last year, that's why they wouldn't
Yeah.
agree to it last year. And the builders have some objection to it, so.
So that's a
And-
little tricky, that, yeah. So I didn't understand that, but that's very interesting that if you adopt as a green community, that you adopt the stretch code, you're subject to every time it gets stretched, you have to abide by the new amendments, as opposed to
Yes.
like
Yeah.
a place and time type
Yeah.
of things. That's very interesting.
Now, it may well be a catch-up thing where,
Yeah,
every time Massachusetts adopts the stretch code, the national codes
yeah.
pick it up, because they say they pretty much took the Mass stretch code and adopted it as the national code.
Yeah.
Very few changes.
Right.
But it's kind of like holding your breath, because you don't know what they're going to do. How far are they going to stretch it?
Well,
you know?
exactly.
And what's going to add to the cost and affordability of housing?
Well, housing, that's the
Yeah.
whole point, yeah. Yeah.
And-
The costs get paid back very quickly, although, I think, under the stretch code. That was my understanding when we went through this the last time, that it was a very
They-
short
yeah.
payback period. It was a matter of 3-5 years type
It-
of thing.
It's funny, though, I've
It
seen,
costs a little more, but you make it up very quickly in the energy savings.
yeah, there was some of the builders claim that, okay, any good builder is going to build to the stretch code anyway, because it saves money for the homeowner and
So they
it makes
wouldn't care
sense to
that-
do.
that's it.
But they have some kind of raters that go in and rate the houses, and they say they charge an arm and a leg, and I've heard figures anywhere from like $3,000 to $8,000 to what it adds to the cost of a house.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some anecdotal evidence. A customer of ours who built a new house in Winchester, they had adopted the stretch energy code, and they had just adopted it, I guess, and apparently, and it cost them an extra, 25 grand, to meet the new
Really?
code
Wow.
requirements. So he wasn't happy about that at all. That
Yeah.
really blew his budget tremendously. So, that's gonna take a long time for him to get back 25 grand in saving heating costs.
That would be, yeah, yeah.
And the house it's not overly big, He was really mad about it because it really, if he had known, he probably wouldn't have built the house in Winchester. He would have looked at another community and stuff, So it kind of caught him by surprise. He wasn't happy about that.
Yeah, that would be, that's the
It wasn't a
highest.
builder, it was a guy building his own house,
Yeah.
the limit.
That's the highest one I've heard so far.
Yeah, it was really
25,000.
expensive. He just couldn't believe it. It just kept going on and on and on and on. You gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. It was
Yeah.
just brutal. So really,
Okay, well, and as I said, that'll be something
Yeah.
that I'm sure the committee will be discussing, whether to try to go with that this year or wait until they find out what's in the new version.
yeah.
Okay, then we've got the usual article in for appropriating money to hire consultants to advise on matters relating to the state hospital site. So I assume that
Yep.
we'll still need money even if the town votes to purchase it this year.
Basically, you've got 2 years of environmental cleanup still to go at the C&D area, so, but I mean, I would expect the cost to be tacking down in terms of, how much supervision is required and what have you, but if the town elects to purchase the property, you may wind up spending that money for
Sure.
different purposes in terms of, future use or what have you.
Figure out how the town's going to do its cleanup
Yeah,
if we own the property.
yeah, and what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
exactly.
So-
Sure.
So, I don't know what the amount is. You may want to wait closer to when the decision gets made on the
Yeah.
property to determine, what.
Yeah.
But not only that, who's going to oversee, whatever goes up there, who's the key person that's going to oversee everything that's going on?
I think that's probably a longer-term decision, though. I mean, I think you've got a ways to go to
Yeah.
come up with your projected uses. I mean, you're talking perhaps about some kind of a manager or whatever, or a development manager. I think you're probably a couple of years away from that.
Yeah. I'm gonna wait.
I mean, that's just me speaking, but that's my impression that, you know.
But I think at some point, you're going to have to.
You will have to look at that sooner or later. If the town decides you want to maintain control over the incremental development of it or whatever, and, you know, sell pieces of it, you're obviously going to need somebody to manage that activity.
Yep.
You know, maybe you'll get rid of it in one fell swoop. I mean, I don't know.
Yep.
Google's going to be looking for new corporate headquarters.
Yeah.
Article 38 is appropriate funds for construction of a pocket park on town-owned land between Starbucks and Zebras and/or give some, name the park or give authority to name the park.
Yeah.
I put this in, it basically as a result of the work that the cultural district community's been doing and the downtown study committee has done over the years. I don't know whether they're going to be looking for money this year or they're going to try to raise it privately or how, but at least it covers it until they figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, so we got a placeholder anyway. So
Yes, yeah. And then I know Pete and Richard have spoken about whether we should try to accept the Community Preservation Act. I don't know whether you want to put an article on to that extent or whether that could be problematic if you're going for money for a water tower or state hospital land acquisition and a public safety building, whether you want to add that on top of it. So.
I think of the Community Preservation Act as a savings because of the state matches. I mean, it's not, you pay more now, but you get the state match, so at the end of the year, you have more.
It's a savings that...
I wouldn't do the Community Preservation Act if I wasn't going to spend money in the future on the three things that are required, which is, I guess, affordable housing, open space, and historic preservation. And my analysis is that we're going to be spending money on those things in the future, so that we're basically leaving money on the table by not adopting the Community Preservation Act because we're not picking up the state matching monies.
And I think had we adopted the last time, the Red Gate Farm, for example, would have been under the Community Preservation Act, and that would have saved the town of Medfield roughly 50% of the cost, right?
No, I think
the
it's...
matches
no,
are down
no.
to 50% last
Yeah,
year.
What's the...
Originally, the match was 100%. The towns that got in early got a 100% match.
what's the percentage now?
Last year, I think it was 52% or something.
They would have been down to, I think, or under 30%, but the state ponied up some additional money in this budget this year. Whether they will continue to do that or not is uncertain.
But still, if we put in 1,000 and the state's putting in 520, that's still $520 of money that we wouldn't have otherwise had. And if we're going to spend that 1,000 in any event on those three areas, it seems to me we want to get that $520 from the state.
Yeah,
So that's my analysis. I don't see it as an extra spending thing. I see it as a savings thing, but, some people are going to see it as a tax.
It does require a tax increase of 1, 2, or 3%, though, so that's...
Yeah, and some people are going to balk at that, sure.
There's one other thing to think about, keep in the back of your mind. Any land purchased with community preservation money is open to any resident of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Say that again?
Any land purchased with Community Preservation Act money is open to any resident of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Unlike land that's purchased with town funds, it can be restricted somewhat to town
Because you're
use.
using state money.
If you're using state money, everyone can use it.
So what, let's take, just for an example, let's say we already had the Community Preservation Act, and let's use Red Gate Farm for an example. What's the savings that the town would have the town would have had if we were able to use state money with that? So you're saying 30%?
If we'd started putting money into the...
Because it came up, what, about 7, 8 years ago?
But it's only a percentage of the money that we've set aside. It isn't like you don't take like 52% of the purchase price and you get
Right.
that from the state of magic money.
Yeah.
It's whatever the town set aside.
So the
Yeah.
town, as Mike said, opts in at 1 or 2 or 3% extra per year, and then the match is whatever the match is every year, and the matches range from 100 down to, I don't know, I think it went below 50, but I think last year it was 52%. And so then you just build up a fund, and I don't know what the fund would have been, the size.
Depends on how much is in your kitty.
Exactly, because they're going to do a percentage of your kitty, yeah.
Okay.
I think they do it in steps. The people that have adopted, the towns that have adopted the 3%, they fund at a higher level.
That's right, they come
They give
out
them a higher
first or
percentage.
something.
Yes, and then the towns that have adopted the 2%, they give it another level, and towns that adopt the 1%, they give it a
Yeah.
still lower level.
So you save more if you do the 3%.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's something for you people to consider whether you want to. It requires town meeting. I asked town council to refresh me on how this works. I think it requires town meeting action to put it on the ballot, and then it requires a ballot question. So.
That's right.
And you really won't have the warrant committee's really got to really vet this too, so that's.
I'm sure they'll have interest in that too, yeah. Keep in mind that there are other ways to finance some of these purchases. For example, the treasurer saved $1.8 million calling bonds in and refinancing them at a lower interest rate. That paid for 100% of Redgate Farm. So, I mean, it would still be nice to have this money on top of that, but what do they say? Every silver lining has a cloud.
Mike, when you circulated the draft warrant articles, the other one that occurred to me, and I don't know if it needs to be a warrant article, so I'll leave that up to you, but.
That's why I gave you this list, so because in case there was anything I left off.
Yeah,
So.
well, and thank you for circulating it, I appreciate it. We have this resident on Wild Holly who's willing to donate an easement across their land, or donate the land to allow access from Wild Holly over to the town land around Wheelock.
Okay.
Is that something that should be on
I
the?
think that does, yeah, that does require town meeting
So
action.
can we add a warrant article about that then too, and then we'll work out the
Yes.
details as to whether or not that can actually
Yep.
be done?
Mhm.
But he's indicated a very strong willingness
Yeah.
to make that happen, so that would be great.
Okay.
That's Steve Bissotti. And I talked to, I talked to Sarah Raposa about it. I exchanged emails with Sarah about it, and she had sent back an email about, from somebody at the time, or a letter from somebody at the time, that the Wild Holly subdivision was before the planning board, and asking about trails, and so that I was wondering why the trail just never got put in at that time. I talked to George Lester at a swim meet yesterday, and he told me that the town didn't own the land behind Wild Holly at that time, that was part of the Holmquist purchase, he thought, so.
It could have been, yeah, I'm not sure. I know we acquired it was quite a while ago we acquired that Holmquist parcel because it's all paid off. It's been paid off for several years.
Yeah, George was able to pinpoint it in terms of when he joined the planning board, and he said that the Holmquist
We didn't
purchase
have
came
it, yeah.
before, I don't
Yeah.
remember, but
The
he,
Homequest land is down off of Plain Street. Wild
Oh,
Holly
no,
is-
there's that land at the end of Homestead Road was also Holmquist land.
Oh, okay.
No, it goes
Is that
from-
At the same time?
No, that was acquired
There was two
before
different purchases.
yeah, that was acquired well before the Plain Street land. I'd say probably about 20 years ago anyway, that was acquired.
wow.
So, and then I think that land where Wild Holly was part of Jack Williams' land. And when that was sold off, that developer bought that and put it in. He lived there at the time. I'm not sure he would have been interested in putting an easement in
The
there.
developer?
Yeah,
No, the developer lived over in Westwood, Neil somebody or other.
and then he moved to Medfield. He bought a house in that development.
Oh, did he?
Yes, he's now sold and moved out of town, but yeah. Oh, he lived in there.
I can't remember what his name was.
Okay, and if there's anything else anyone thinks of, let me know. I'll talk to Mark about the Wild Holly easement and see what needs to be done. Maybe we get the county engineers to work with us to draw up something or engineer something on that.
We'll move on with action items. We've got a vote to appoint a capital budget committee member.
Yes, I think that was for Mary Alice Whalen. It was
Okay.
to be it was It was to be the community representative.
Okay,
And
okay.
she had been the warrant committee representative,
Yeah.
but she's no longer on the warrant committee, but she's been serving on the committee, and
Yep.
Chris spoke to her, and she's willing to serve.
Oh,
if you
excellent.
wanted
That's
to
great.
on it.
Great.
I would move to appoint her to the Capital Budget Committee then.
Excellent. I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Just a thing, we've got the school budget, school department budget's in here, so I was just taking a glance at that.
Yeah, it's up, I believe, around 3.98%.
Yep,
So. a
first
little
pass
over-
anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a start. And the warrant committee has 9 copies of it. They have
Yeah.
one for each of their members. We just have the 1 copy of it. So
Can share.
if anyone wants to borrow it and take a look at it, or
We've got another item here as far as updating the selectmen's calendar, and it's something I think that we talked about working on anyways and stuff, just kind of.
right, I think I was working today with Evelyn, putting together a draft on that. Did you
Yeah,
have
okay.
So we're going to try to get I know we have the 28th, we have the planning and building, and then on the 21st, we were going to try to get, who's coming in on the 21st, Evelyn? I can't remember who it was.
Park and Rec and Open Space Group.
I think we had them
Park and Rec.
coming in, yeah.
Okay.
And then on the first meeting of March, I was going to try to get the Insurance Advisory Committee to come in, because we'll have some information as to the rate range, and we can also get the Warrant Committee and to discuss the pension and OPEB funding too, maybe at the same time. They all seem to tie in.
Good.
So, and then we'll have the budget hearings where
We'll
to
start,
get those
yeah.
scheduled, so you'll.
Okay, we'll have those, keep us busy.
Vacation's over, the holidays are gone by, and it's time to start the race to the town meeting, huh?
The Medfield Cultural Council is requesting the selectmen to vote to appoint Claire Shaw to the committee.
So moved.
Second, another excellent choice.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
The Committee to Study Memorials is requesting the selectmen to vote to appoint Michelle Doucette to their committee.
So moved.
And again, a very active member. I'll
Yeah.
certainly
She's
second
certainly
that.
deserving of that.
Yeah.
The work she does on Veterans Day and
And she's, her
Memorial Day,
dad, of
yeah.
course, was on that committee as well.
Yeah.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Okay, good. And then, Richard, I know you wanted to chat about the sidewalk construction
I
around
did.
Brothers.
Just some background, I mean, I've been involved in this, but I think this has to come a direction from the Board of Selectmen as a whole. Just real quick on the background, the Aesthetics Committee, which was appointed by the Planning Board, has recommended, and it gets into your master plan a little bit as well, for sidewalk construction, that it resemble closely what we have on Pound Street, which is roughly a 2-foot strip of brick
Right,
that would run
yeah.
from the curbing going in. And where the trees are, I believe there's 4 trees in the former Lord's Block area there, that grates would be put in there.
Mhm.
And work that would be done would have to also, if there was any changes of significant changes, would have to conform with the ADA
Oh, yeah.
requirements naturally. About 1/3 of the sidewalk is owned by Roach Brothers, and roughly 2/3 by the town of Medfield. And by working, by bringing Roach Brothers in, they are very supportive and have been in agreement to contribute X amount of dollars towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've met with Roach Brothers and with Ken Feeney, Mike, and Sarah, to see if we could get our Roland, our engineer, with the Roach Brothers engineer to get together to draw up a plan to do that, to work together. So what I'm recommending is, I would like this board to take some kind of position. Is this something that we want to work, this partnership of private and town together to accomplish something, to get a more beautified look in the downtown, to begin this process of what the Aesthetics Committee is calling for, with the brick sidewalk, which will improve that area. And we have a window of opportunity to save money, to be able to get private, i.e. Roach Brother money, to help in with the project. If it is something, then this board may just want to let DPW, the Downtown Study Committee, the Planning Board know that this is something that the Board of Selectmen feels is important, and hopefully all sides can kind of come together and make this happen. I think it's just a vote of support so that DPW and Planning Board and others know that this is something that the Board of Selectmen wants to happen. The window of opportunity is going to close when Roach Brothers opens, because they do not want construction hurting their business. According to Roach Brothers, they're looking about the beginning of June, somewhere into June, to open. That would give us an opportunity in the spring of either the warmer months of April and May to get that work done. In talks with Bobby Kennedy, he said that project would take about no more than a month. And what they're looking is to go from the parking lot on South Street, where the sidewalk begins, around the corner as far as the end of the block by the jewelry store, where there's a geographically a nice place to stop. Then you open up with the all brick that goes into the library. So I'm just looking for, right now it's myself as an individual selectman that's been working with them, and I think it's something. Do we as a board want to do this or not? I think that's what I'm asking.
Good. So,
I think it's an excellent idea, and I appreciate your having done that. Thank you.
right. Should you make a motion then?
I would move that, as a board policy, that we adopt the recommendation of the Aesthetics Committee, that sidewalks should have that sort of look, and that we take advantage of the partnership that Richard was discussing with Roach Brothers.
And your second, obviously, so all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Excellent, that'd be great.
Thank
That'll
you.
be terrific. It'll look nice.
And can we just let Ken and, who's chair of Downtown Study now?
Nobody.
You can let Christine
Downtown
alone.
Study Committee?
Christine.
Chris, so, yeah, okay.
And Planning Board,
Sarah,
which is
yeah.
George Lester, I believe.
Sarah.
Okay.
And Sarah knows
Yeah.
as well. And she can relay that to
Yeah.
Roach Brothers. Thanks.
Well,
Thank you.
We probably ought to let the owner of the other building know too, because their business will be affected by
Absolutely, and
that
that's
too,
a real
yeah.
fact, and that's,
Yeah.
That's a good neighbor policy.
Yeah,
yeah.
all right.
That's Pat, and I can never remember his last name. He was the former owner of,
Yeah.
what was then Bella Pizza, but he
Yeah.
actually owns that part of
block.
the building.
You always remember the Zula building,
Yeah.
that covers it, so.
Are there any
The DeVasco
liability issues
building.
here with the split between 1/3 and 2/3?
I'm sorry?
Just wondering if there were any liability issues between the split and 1/3 and 2/3.
No, I don't know.
If somebody trips on the 1/3, then who are they?
Well, it'd be no different than it is now, because there's part of a sidewalk that's 1/3, 2/3, that's there right now. The other part of that is, rather than have Roach Brothers do some work and the town do some work, they would combine the effort, so you would have one contractor do the whole thing. And that would, I guess, would have to be worked out.
Yeah, they
I
can
don't know,
figure that out.
Legal.
Kind of what my question was.
I'm good.
Well, I would imagine, like, if somebody fell over there now in front of Bella Pizza on the private part versus the town sidewalk, I don't know.
It would make a difference.
Push them over to the private part.
But if you're
Yeah.
sharing, but if you're jointly constructing the property there, I mean, then I could see Roach Brothers arguing that the town has responsibility for the whole three, but I'm not aware.
No, well, they
Well-
can figure it out, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we
it-
won't get anything done if we have to worry about the lawyers and everyone sue. I mean, we
Hey.
won't fix a thing in the town, you know what I mean? You know, between people
Sort of like the
suing.
discussion we had on plowing the parking lot in the back.
Exactly, yeah. You know, so we
Who's
can-
liable if somebody trips or?
we can waste a lot of time on that. Licensing and permits. Council on Aging is requesting a one-day wine and malt beverage permit for 3 events. Wednesday, January 15th, their supper club. Saturday, February 15th, their Valentine's Day dance. And Saturday, March 15th, the Irish dinner.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
St. Edward Parish is requesting a one-day alcohol license for the annual parish dance to be held on January 25th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Medfield Coalition for Public Education is requesting permission to post signs at the approved locations from January 26th to the February 15th to advertise their spring fundraiser.
So moved.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Medfield State Hospital status update, as we look to the left and no Christine, so no. So well, we know we have a big thing on Saturday.
Yeah, I can, if you,
If you want to give it a little.
I'll just give it a quick little, on Saturday at the center on Ice House Road, beginning at 10 o'clock, there's going to be a visioning session on what the residents would like to see as a potential use for the hospital property should the town decide to buy it. The group has a website, capital M, capital S, capital H, capital V, Vision. So it's mshvision.net, and that has a flyer brochure on what the topics are in a little bit more detail. There is an RSVP. Lunch is going to be provided. And if anyone is interested in attending, and I would encourage you to, we have a chance to do something here to decide what happens up there. sraposa@medfield.net for any RSVPs, and I think it'll be a worthwhile session.
Good. Thank you.
Can we all the members of the Board of Selectmen going?
Mm-hmm.
Can we, have you already sent in an RSVP?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't, no, I've got to drive my daughter somewhere, maybe, I don't know for sure yet.
You can make
Can
it
you
okay.
let Sarah know that I'll be going to that? And is that an issue because we have more than one selectman there? We don't have to
No, I
declare
think they modified the regs, that they're saying you don't have to post it.
You're also supporting, you're part of
Yeah,
Yeah.
putting this on.
But we're not in violation of the open meeting law or something?
yeah.
Okay.
It's an informational type meeting. And so. Being from Fall River, I think people ought to know, is Raposa with an S or a Z?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
SRAPOSA
Okay.
at medfield.net.
And the website, was it
It's
MH,
MSH,
MSH?
the abbreviation for Medfield State Hospital, all in caps, Vision, just the V in caps, .net.
Okay.
Just the V, it's not the whole
Just the
word
V.
vision, just the
Just
V.
the V.
Okay.
Okay, good. Great.
Thanks.
It's a visual medium, not a oral.
Excellent. Good. Thanks for the update, Bill. Thank you.
And really, the special town meeting on the question of the purchase of the hospital is going to be coming along in the next couple of months, and so that people really should be focusing on this issue of the state hospital, and this is really the time to pay attention to the state hospital issue and come forward and have the discussion at this public input meeting on Saturday.
And say your piece. Have your piece and get your
Get your lunch.
get your vote count, whatever you want to call it, your input into it.
It's now or never. If
Yeah.
if you don't speak up now.
Or I'll hold your piece, or whatever it is. Yeah. Pete, Selectmen's report.
We all ended up at the Eagle Scout ceremony this weekend, this Saturday, for Nick Sorrow. And it was fascinating because it was done in a different way. And then I picked up the little booklet on the way out, and it's a very nicely done booklet. So it was very interesting, both from the usual standpoint and also from the standpoint that it was done very differently by this time. The Medfield Foundation had a meeting last night, and the two things there are is the Angel Run has been more financially successful than ever before, and the money from that is going primarily to aid families in Medfield that are in financial need. So that's a good item. And then the second thing that's going on with the Medfield Foundation is the volunteer awards, the volunteer recognition. Nominations need to be in by the end of this month. And so if anybody is interested in recognizing someone who's done extraordinary volunteer service, you can just go to the Medfield Foundation website, which is medfieldfoundation.org, and get the form there and submit it by January 31. Went to the planning board meeting last night after the Medfield Foundation meeting ended up, and they were talking about the Clark Tavern. And I was fascinated I'm very appreciative that the Board of Selectmen doesn't have to make a decision on this, because it's at first I thought it was a slam dunk issue that we're getting an old building in town that is being reused, and then I read all the letters that the neighbors sent in and talked to to some neighbors, and it's a very complicated issue, putting a commercial establishment in a residential neighborhood like that. And, I mean, I love the fact that the Clark Tavern gets reused. I'm not sure that I would want a commercial establishment next door to my house. So it's a very complicated issue. I see it as a Hobson's choice for the Zoning Board of Appeals on Thursday night. And that's it.
Okay. Richard?
Several things. One, I guess more through Christine, I just wanted to know an update where we were with the Tree City. I think she said in January that was coming about, so.
Oh, I'll check with her. Tree City.
Probably, she's the expert on that. I also received just a sort of a concern from a couple of people that work at the library concerning the municipal lot and the darkness of the lot at night, walking down there. And I don't know whether we can make that
Which
lighter.
municipal, this one down here?
Municipal lot behind,
I think they just replaced a couple of the lights.
so that it's lighter now.
Yeah, didn't they replace, they put, yeah. So I think it should be okay. Now I'll check when I
Maybe
go
the
out,
issue
yeah.
Maybe the issue is that there were lights out.
There were a couple that were out a while ago. I'll check and make sure that they're back on, but I think Eric told me it was working with the fire department to replace the lights.
Great,
Yeah.
great, thank you. And then in just a little bit of my walks here, there's a stone wall on South Street, opposite Grist Mill Road. And back in, when we had the tropical storm 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, apparently there's a tree there, and the tree came down and it knocked, it's a beautiful wall that runs the whole length of the sidewalk, but a huge section of that stone wall has collapsed, and there's rocks that are there. It's been there for a couple of years. The owner is feeling it's town property. I walk by it a lot. I just always assumed it was private. But there is one of those granite markers, the boundary markers, that seems to show, that's up from the wall, that would seem to appear that it's town property on that. Can we check on that to see, first of all, if that is indeed a town stone wall? And I know we have Jim Callahan and others that are pretty handy with stonework. I don't know how big of a job that would be, but we have Ken or
Yeah, it
Bob.
can probably, is this the wall before Grist Mill, between the railroad tracks and Grist Mill, or the other side? Or
Opposite Grist Mill, and it runs from
Opposite
the
Grist Mill.
railroad tracks towards 27.
Oh,
On the
Okay.
left-hand side going towards 27.
wasn't there an issue with a tree there or something
There
a
was
couple
a couple years
ago?
ago.
There's a huge
Yep.
tree there.
Yep, there was a
one
tree
which
that we
the
were-
town actually took down,
Yeah.
Yeah,
which I actually was opposed to, but
Yeah.
lost on that end.
so that's Joanne's house?
Coons,
Joanne
correct.
Coons' house, okay. We'll check, I think we can find from the layout whose stone wall it is.
Okay. We had a very successful meeting with the Columbia Gas Company. I was very pleased with this. The issue was Adam Street from West Street down towards West Mill Street. 3 years ago, the gas company put new pipes in. And over time, it actually is like a swale that goes down, and potholes have developed. And clearly, that's an issue of the gas company to repair. We met with the gas company. They were very, very cooperative, I thought. They said they'll put this on number one on their list. Naturally, they cannot do the tarring now because it's winter time. But as soon as spring comes and tarring weather begins, Medfield will be the first to be, that section of Adams Street will be repaved. And they will also kind of follow the good neighbor policy. They are going to send letters out to those folks on Adams Street, letting them know that this work is going to be done. And I know, Pete, you've brought this up a number of times, and in talks with Bobby Kennedy, there are actually 4 of these holes, one of which is on Pleasant and Main
Yep.
Street. They're actually valve holes.
Yep.
And what the gas company did is they replaced the valves, but they never filled in.
around the valve.
And so they said they would be able to use like a hot tarring, that they can actually do it this month.
Yeah, they said they have a arrangement with a plant that stays open year-round, and they can put hot patch in, so.
And according to Bob Kennedy, there's 4 or 5 of those holes that run from Brook Street down to the cemetery.
Good.
So they're going to fill them in right
Yeah.
away.
Great.
Nice.
That was very good. I attended the Highway Garage meeting this morning. It's interesting, if you haven't been down there, everything's all bubble wrapped. So they get, because of the cold weather, they can continue to do some of the work that's down there. That seems to be progressing. There was a couple of things because of weather that's putting them a little behind. But
Yeah, they didn't have the masons in, they didn't have enough masons in the early fall to get the building enclosed so they could work on it over the winter, so hopefully they'll pick up as the weather improves, so.
Yeah.
And again, just to echo what Pete said on the Eagle Scout ceremony, it was just very impressive with the displays and everything that they had that was there. And I just want to make note, 2 individuals that have contributed a lot to the town that passed away since our last meeting. Ed Doherty, just a tremendous, tremendous person.
Yep.
Involved into youth sports, particularly the hockey, the Little League, was very active in the 325th and 350th anniversaries of the town, and he was the editor of the monthly magazines that we put out at that time. Very involved into Medfield TV. Just a great, great job with that. Just a great, father and grandfather, and we're certainly going to miss.
And never had a bad word to say about anyone. He was always so
just
kind and cheerful. And,
I think Ed was the chair of the 350th committee, co-chair with Nancy Horan.
And the other was Anita Daniels, a longtime resident, brought up just a great family, very involved into sports with the kids, and very involved with the senior citizens, and she's going to be missed greatly as well. I just, 2 things with Evelyn. One, I wanted to thank you for sending out those mini town hall notices that went out in January. I will be having the mini town hall with the folks up in the Maplewood Road area. And the second thing, I'm not sure if Christine relayed the message, to try to contact the area selectmen to see if they could pen me into one of their meetings. And she mentioned that.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
she'll work on it.
Great,
It's the holidays.
great, absolutely. No, sometime in the next couple of months, hopefully I can, because I just felt it was much easier for me to go there than trying to get a time when we could get all 5 together at one place. I just wanted to follow up, because in the last snowstorm, it was very difficult to get down, and that's Upham Road. The whole thing on Upham Road, we were going to look before the chief was going to try to see if maybe there was some other parking areas, be it CVS or others, that maybe some of the employees at Thomas Upham maybe could park, or it just was very difficult. In fact, you had to wait because of the snowbanks, cars parked on both sides, trying to get down that street.
Yeah, it was like a one passage.
Yeah, I don't think
You
a
had to
fire
let the other
truck
car
could
go.
Get down there.
yeah.
And I too went to the planning board meeting as well with the Cock Tavern. I have a little different take on that. I agree with you. It's a very difficult decision that the planning board has to make. I will say I was very impressed with the Linnerts. I think they're trying very hard to work with the neighborhood concerns, and as I said before, there are some very legitimate concerns that are there. They have come up with a new plan, a revised plan that addresses many of those concerns. We heard of a traffic study that took place that seemed to support most of the issues of the development of the tavern and bed and breakfast. And again, I'm coming from the idea that, and I spoke as an individual selectman last night, that it clearly saves one of Medfield's most historical buildings. It preserves the character of East Main Street and the historic image, I think, of the town, excuse me, as a whole. The Historical Society spoke in support of that. They, of course, are the owners of the abutting Peak House that's next door. Also, the Historical Commission spoke in support. The Linnards, the Historical District Commission Chair Mike Taylor brought up working with the Historical District Commission to develop a two-house historic district that would comprise of the Peak House and the restored Clock Tavern, which would then preserve both of those buildings for all time. I mentioned that the tavern will bring what I feel continued life and additional people into Medfield Center area, adding to reduced town taxes, keeping the town vibrant and economically sound, and more trying to make Medfield a destination location, and that the bed and breakfast part provides Medfield with a place that we currently don't have for Medfield families to have friends and relatives be able to stay there. And the planning board will continue that hearing on February the 3rd. They heard from about maybe 4 citizens at large that were there, but there was a lot of other people that didn't have the opportunity to speak. And so that's going to continue on February 3rd. And Thursday night, as Pete mentioned, it goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and there were numerous zoning issues that were raised there. And I just want to thank, I guess, Mike and the DPW a little bit, because I received several calls concerning Lord's parking lot at the last snowstorm, especially seniors that want to use the library. And the agreement, I believe, with Mr. Salvadori, the owner, he signed over
We could do whatever's one as long as he didn't have to do anything.
permission.
Well, he doesn't have to pay for it.
Well, he would not plow it. He
No.
would not plow it. And so he did sign over for the town, and Medfield has an entrance going in and plowed out that back parking area for library, and then an exit to come out. I'm still just concerned because that middle area is just ice, and I know it's not the town's responsibility.
He told me he has very good liability insurance.
No,
There we go. Or else he's all set.
I hope Roach Brothers are able to get in there soon, because they're willing to do the work
Do
as
it,
soon as
yeah.
they become official tenants. They can't now, because several people said, well, why won't Roach Brothers do that? It's Mr. Salvadori's property right now. Roach Brothers is not yet a tenant.
Right, they haven't signed a lease yet,
They-
or permanent,
They
they're
have no
not.
control over that
No,
whatsoever.
yeah.
And then just the last thing, in the last hour, I thought the highway department did an excellent job for a very difficult snowstorm. I can't really remember a snowstorm that it was 0 degrees and with heavy snow like that. And just looking at the downtown area was cleared out pretty rapid. I had gone over to Walpole, and it was just a different scene over there. I thought Medfield did a very good job on that.
I think they did, and it was a very difficult time this year because they don't have a town garage to work out of. They were working out of a salt shed, and they had a couple of engines that freeze up, and on one of the sidewalk plows, the engine froze. The sand pile froze on them, so they had to, and so it made it much more difficult to get for the sand spreaders to spread the sand. But you know, as usual, as long as I've been in this job, you always get. Some people say the town did a wonderful, DPW did a wonderful job, and you always get somebody who says, oh, the roads are horrible. Every other town I went to was wonderful. And it just goes on and on. But I think they did it, I agree with you, I think they did a tremendous job given the difficult nature of the storm.
And it was cold.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're right, and you forget, they don't have a garage to work out of,
Yeah,
you know,
they
they
work
outside and stuff like that,
Yes,
just
yeah.
kind of wherever they can fit
They've
in.
been very cooperative about dealing with this tough situation this winter, so.
I think it was so cold that the salt that they were putting down wasn't having any effect.
Well-
Once you get down below 15 degrees, I don't think you can really melt stuff.
It did. Ken told me that they actually had to go over to Gilmore's. Is there still a Gilmore's in Walpole?
Walpole,
Yes.
yeah.
And buy calcium chloride and mix it with the sand to get it to with the salt to get it to work. So it was a very difficult storm. So
It's it's great. I mean, I really appreciate the guys because they're very creative. You know, they
Yes.
kind of just figure out whatever they need to do to get things done. It's terrific. You know, we're very lucky here. We really are in town. All this stuff that happens behind the scenes that people don't know about, people figuring out, dealing with problems, you know, to keep the place safe.
and I think until you've been out on a snowplow with one of these guys in the middle of a storm, trying to figure out where the road is,
Yeah.
you can't appreciate how difficult the job
No,
that can be.
definitely not.
Yeah.
No, it is really good that that they get all the snow out of the center of town. What a big difference. I'm not sure when they started doing that and stuff like that, because it seems to me as a kid there used to be mounds of snow when I was here, but I'm sure, you know what I mean, but eventually they figured out that made sense to get rid of it with payloaders and stuff.
I think it happened when they got a snowblower. It makes it much easier because
Yeah.
they could just load the trucks really very quickly and move along. So
Yeah,
it
so
made a
that
big
really
difference.
makes a big difference. I got a nice little note from Ann. Oh, by the way, Ann Thompson, I think turned 80 Monday, something like that, or birthday?
Sunday,
Sunday
yeah.
and stuff like that. So, a happy birthday, Ann. But she sent a nice little note over. Just want to thank you, Malcolm Gibson, Public Works. I guess.
Yes,
He
yeah.
helped out. Yeah. So Andy fell down one morning, out with the morning walking the dog, and Malcolm was coming by, I guess, in the truck, which was very nice. He stopped, picked him up, and got him back in the house, and helped out a little bit and stuff like that. So Ann just wanted a little public thank you. Make sure that he get recognized. Once again, it's nice. We've got a lot of great people that work in town here that are always helping out and stuff. Threw me for a loop when we went to the Eagle Scout thing on Saturday. Well, I went into the Legion, and every time I go in there, there's always round tables with the 8 or 10 chairs around the tables. It always looks the same. It's always because there's a function. So all the chairs were lined up facing the stage, so it completely threw me for a loop. I'd never seen it set up like that before, but it was a nice presentation there, and they had a lot of nice displays. Eagle Scout memorabilia, Boy Scout memorabilia. It was great to kind of look at some of that stuff. So it was very well done, as it always is. We're very lucky in town. We've got a lot of Eagle Scout things. So we've got another one coming up in a couple of weeks, and then I think we have one coming up in February. I think they were kind of warning us about that. The invitations would be going out soon. So we're back in the Eagle Scout season again. It seems to be and stuff.
Gold
Yeah.
awards are March 23.
Yeah.
Same day as the Medfield Foundation Volunteer Awards, unfortunately.
Yeah. I've got, I'm getting together next Thursday, January 16th, do my little taping with Jack Peterson, Medfield TV. We're a little off schedule. Jack had not been feeling too well a little bit over the last month or so and stuff. So
Who's the media person with you?
I've got to actually make sure that we can work that out. If not, we'll reschedule, but I'll chat with you a little bit, see if it works and stuff. I'll chat with you after the meeting and stuff. But so that's good. So Jack's feeling much better, so that's great. So we'll be back on track there to chit-chat on TV. And like I said, once again, as we've all talked about, this Saturday is a big day for the town of Medfield. If you can find some time to come over to the center on Saturday, it'll be terrific. Get a chance to have your thoughts heard and stuff like that. Get some input on where the town might want to go with the state hospital property and stuff. A lot of effort's gone into planning and stuff like that. I know it'll be a very well-run thing between the consultant, I think, that's running it, as well as the committee and stuff. There's a lot of work been into it, so I know it'll be very good. I know many years ago, the Downtown Study Committee did a similar thing. I think visioning for downtown Medfield and stuff. I think we had it at either the high school or the middle school. I remember going there, sitting in the cafeteria, and ideas, and people were jotting stuff down on flip pads and stuff like that. And that was terrific, because then the consultant took everyone's ideas, we're aware, and kind of consolidated it all and put it together very professionally. So it's well worth the effort if people can make it. So that's my 2 cents there. Michael, anything on the informational stuff?
Oh,
No,
I think
so,
that's
right?
pretty well.
Site plan approval, Roche Brothers, right? Yep.
Yep.
And that's it. Yeah, so really not too much.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty well.
Good, excellent. Well, I think we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Good.
Excellent.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.